At Vermont Daily Chronicle, we support your First Amendment right.
And we also support your Second Amendment rights.
Chocolate vanilla twist with rainbow sprinkles. Come on down.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. I'm Guy Page. I'm the editor of the Vermont Daily Chronicle, and I'm here on the Vermont Podcast with our social media director, Paul Bean. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Very good, Guy. How are you?
And off camera, but on mic for the very first time, our managing editor, Tim Page. Tim, how you doing?
All right.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long week for Tim, too, I guess. All right. Well, we're here in the 802 Scoop studios. Thank you very much for the gracious use of this terrific studio on Main Street in Barrie. Before we get into our main topics, we've got two, really. One is the very troubling photo that we ran yesterday of a 7-year-old girl holding a sign using an obscenity to describe her feelings about our president and kind of what all of the dissension and division in our culture means for the younger generation. What are we teaching our children? That's one. Then we'll be talking about, and we welcome your thoughts on both of these subjects, because this is really your show too, you know? So get on the chats, get on the comments, let us know what you think. The other main subject, you remember that property tax revolt last year? You remember, there's a pretty good chance if you're watching this show, you might have gone to the polls and said, heck no, I'm not voting for that property tax. Well, the legislature heard that, the governor heard that, and just this week, they passed a bill that was their best effort at property tax reform, and we're going to be breaking that down. What exactly did they do, and is it going to work? First, though, a couple announcements about what we'll be up to in the next week or so. I will be speaking at and having a table out, I guess, at the Vermont Right to Life annual picnic. It's their celebration of the Dobbs decision. And it will be on the State House lawn tomorrow. I think it's 11 to 2. I'm going to be there noonish, 11:30 to noon.
I can confirm, Guy, the time if you want.
Okay, that'd be great. I only had an article in it, a couple of days ago, but of course all the details I've totally forgotten because that's how I roll sometimes. So there's that. Noonish tomorrow on the State House lawn, Vermont Right to Life picnic.
11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Yeah,
okay.
You're close enough.
Yeah. And also, Paul and I the shoe will be on the other foot. We will be interviewed by Rob Roper. We'll be going into the WDEV studios. We've had him here in our studio, and we'll be in his. Next Tuesday, the 24th, also my parents' anniversary, my mother's birthday, my nephew's and niece's birthday, and also the day that Colette said, yes, Guy, I will marry you. Yeah,
it's a pretty special day, Guy.
This is a very big day for us. And so we're adding one more memory, hopefully a good one, to that.
Well, to be fair, Guy, we're doing our show today, of course, 802 Scoop Studio here in Barrie. And just want to thank Raylene Meunier for being so open and gracious to the show, to letting us use the space. Even when we, cause all kinds of problems, but she's been pretty great with us. So we just want to shout them out and everything that she's doing here to make this place so awesome. And of course Michael Booten and Barry Beat podcast.
Yeah.
So back to
Very
you.
grateful
Guy.
for that. I guess Mike Tagliavia has been shooting his show from here, I think.
Right side up?
Yeah.
Wow, good.
At least I think that was in the works. Hope I didn't spill the beans too much. And the other thing is, Tim, what is today?
The 20th?
Come on, you're the one who came up with it.
Oh, Clarinth.
It's Clarinth.
Clarinth?
That's right.
What?
We had three of John Clar's of Brookfield, the prolific writer, speaker, lawyer, and pastor John Clar, political candidate, wrote a bunch of columns, and we had three of them sort of in the hopper. We said, you know what? Let's just decide that today is Clarinth, and we ran. Well, it was Tim's idea. We ran three of John Clar's columns. You can see them in the Vermont Daily Chronicle. Hope you enjoy them.
I actually saw John Clark today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was at O'Matty's in Northfield, of all places.
Wow.
It's just like, what are you doing here? So happy Clarinth to me.
Yes. Yeah.
It's actually, today is him and his wife's anniversary today.
No.
It is. Now that it's their anniversary.
Oh.
So it really is Clarinth.
Wow. Well, happy anniversary to John and Jackie Clar.
It's pretty cool, actually.
God bless them. That's
It is
great.
the solstice. Truly, it is the brightest day of the year.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
That's
is.
a good point. Okay. So there's that. And also, the things you find in the Vermont Daily Chronicle. Did you know, Paul, that there's a country in Africa where slavery is still happening?
I did not know that.
I didn't know either until Tim wrote about it today.
Wow.
He wrote a story. Mauritania apparently has hereditary slavery.
Wow.
Really, in practice happening.
That's
anyway.
crazy.
Yeah, it's sort of like the last vestige of the old-fashioned African slavery is still happening there. And anyway, you can read about that, folks, in the Vermont Daily Chronicle. I don't think you're going to read about it anywhere else.
I just pulled it up for folks if they want to see it. It's the slaves in Africa today still waiting for their Juneteenth.
That's right.
Good point. Really good point.
Which is why he wrote it this week, was because we're all celebrating Juneteenth. Which, by the way, you made a comment on social media yesterday saying sort of something to the effect of, is this really a holiday?
Yeah.
And I get that because, when you and I became really aware of it was during the whole George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. It was sort of all part of that thing, which, some problematic stuff with all of that from our points of view. But Juneteenth itself really was a true celebration going back to the 19th century among Southern blacks for the emancipation of slavery. It's a real deal. Now, it wasn't a national thing, really, and maybe it wasn't like a legal holiday or anything like that. And even, I was talking to Mike Donahue today, our star cops and court reporter, and he said that apparently the courts, no, not the courts, Senator Welch's office took not only yesterday, Juneteenth, off, but said, oh, what the heck, we're going to take Friday off too. So
Of course they did.
it's,
Well,
nice work if you can get it.
well, and to be fair, I mean, I'll just say for us, okay, sure, they celebrated it in the South for many years. I know that's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, I went to the bank yesterday and they were closed, and I was very upset.
Right.
And I guess my whole point is like, it's not our holiday. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, it also kind of reminds me, I think there's a lot of people who feel like the Juneteenth idea and that, like, again, the BLM, George Floyd, all that kind of stuff, which was disastrous in my opinion. I think it's that all that stuff set race relations back a number of years, and I think that this holiday is kind of symbolic of that. I mean, we have the 4th of July, and I think there's a lot of people who take issue with that holiday, and or they at least want to replace it with some other holiday.
Right.
But
Columbus Day being another great example.
yeah,
Now,
or indigenous people.
Day.
I mean, it's the constant. I understand wanting to make change and do things differently and have new perspectives, but it's the constant redefining of things that I thought we all agreed on. I thought we all took, very seriously, and we held close to our hearts. But that's not the case. There seems to be this rehashing all the time. But speaking of 4th of July, Guy, and this might be a good time to go back to that story, the No Kings rallies.
All right.
Sounds like there's going to be another No Kings rally throughout the country on 4th of July weekend. That's what I've been reading. I've read that a few minutes before we got started today, and I saw from reputable sources that that's probably going to be happening. So,
To be fair, the 4th of July is a good time to celebrate America throwing kings away.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That
That's
was kind of the point.
So maybe maybe we should go, guys. Maybe we should be part of it.
There's a
Celebrate
great-
it as it should be celebrated.
Yeah.
as
There's
opposed-
a great meme that has Trump talking to Putin, and Trump saying, "Bet you I can get the left. Bet you $20 I can get the left to call me a king." And Putin says, "No way." And then it's a week later, pay up.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's funny though. It's like to call him a king. You wouldn't even be out there protesting if he was a king. You wouldn't be allowed to do that.
That's right.
I think that what they're doing is showing, no kings, no kings.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
good for them. I can't necessarily blame them for some of it.
And it really is just hurting their own cause.
Yes.
The polls don't lie about that. The more this is going on, the more intense it gets, the higher this administration's polls seem to be getting. Even when they're doing things that, it's like we don't want these to be happening, but we understand why they're happening.
Well, and I think, Guy, to bring it back to what we want to talk about, the little girl holding the sign,
Right.
it's because of stuff like this, right? I think people see this, and we want to make this point, I think people see this, and it's like, here's a sweet-looking girl and her family, and the mother, I think...
Her mom and her big sister.
Yeah, and they look like, your classic Vermont family, and then you look at what she's got on the sign, and you're just like, what?
Right.
That's their message?
Right. It reminded me of two very sad, troubling things. One was from my own past. Neither of you guys remember the war in Vietnam. You weren't born.
No.
The last time this country was as divided as we are now was over the war in Vietnam. And I was a 14, 15-year-old ninth grade student. And there was an outspoken senator from Illinois, a Republican named Everett Dirkson, who supported the war in Vietnam, was also led the civil rights charge. But anyway.
Strange.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But he was more on the side of the Chicago cops during the '68 convention. And anyway, was supporting the war in Vietnam. And when he died in 1972, I said to my basketball coach and my science teacher, who was someone who had been telling us all this sort of, he came from a more anti-war liberal perspective. So I said to him, Mr. Ryback, Everett Dirkson died. I'm glad he died. And I felt that. And I was not a maladjusted kid, All I cared about back then was making good grades, playing basketball, and maybe trying to get a girl to kiss me,
Yeah.
In ninth grade. That's
course.
all I was all about. I
Yep.
wasn't political. I wasn't anything like that. And Mr. Ryback looked at me and said, I'm not happy when anyone dies.
Yeah.
And it made me, I think, even then realize, well, I had a bit of a perspective problem. And I think young people, we listen to what our elders are saying. And we take them maybe a little bit too much to heart.
Yes.
And we don't have this perspective. And as adults, I don't know, Tim, did I ever give across a vibe like that when you were growing up?
Not that I can recall.
Well, thank you for saying that. Here's your $20. But yeah. Well, anyway, folks, if you have comments on this whole letter thing, boy, I've gotten emails from people saying this is so disturbing on so many levels.
Yeah.
And Lynn LaFleur's, a woman from Stowe, a MAGA supporter and sine wave organizer from Stowe, saying that she went to the No Kings rally wearing a camo hat and a Trump sweatshirt and with an American flag. So she knew what she was getting into, but yeah, she got a lot of really, really awful verbal abuse, and some of it, again, from young people. The adults were, you know, but the young people were incredibly rude to her.
Here's this is a photo Lynn took. This is the 86 No Kings 47, which that's a relatively young person there. I mean, they're not. Actually, it looks like there's another person whose hand I can't see who's holding at the age of them. But for people that don't know what that means, basically that means kill 47. 86, 47. Donald Trump is the 47th president. You know, I don't know where the 86 comes from. Is that a?
I think it's kind of a cop thing.
Got it.
It's
Oh,
a
86.
code.
It's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
a food service thing. They use the same term in food service. If you're in a kitchen, they say 86 that order means just
Kill
no,
it.
nix it.
Yeah. So it's possible that some of these 86s are saying, we want to see his presidency ended.
Yeah.
We want him impeached. We want
Canceled.
his influence. Yes, we want him
I'd say the
canceled.
majority. But
But you know, I have always understood 86 to mean kill, and I was in security and had done some police reporting, and to me 86 actually really did mean kills, and I find it all quite troubling that these are the messages that we're giving off, and our kids. There's a guy named Ravi Zacharias who spoke to one of the leaders of Hamas years ago, and he said, as long as our hatred of our enemy exceeds our love for our children, is more important than our love for our children, we're doomed.
Sounds a little bit like RFK, what he was saying, like about our love for our children has to be more than our hatred for each other. And in this country right now, it does seem that people are just so full of hate on both sides of the political spectrum.
That's a fact.
And we should point out,
Yes.
and we want to be clear about this. I mean, to say that the Republicans are like not guilty in some of this kind of rhetoric, it's not the case. I mean, Republicans have been somewhat inflammatory, and the F Joe Biden chants. And,
Yeah.
let's not pretend like that's not a real thing. I mean,
yeah.
I've seen kids with different things or pictures of them Republican related with guns and things, and I'm not necessarily saying I don't support that. I mean, I think kids maybe should be not near guns, but this plays both ways. 100%, this plays both ways. So
We got one of our comments on our story was from my old friend Brian Costello from Colchester, the guy who's really most responsible for building the Colchester bike path and the Colchester Causeway and the little ferry that you cross there. As a citizen, very responsible for all that. And he's more on the Democrat side. And he said, the pearl clutching I'm seeing here is just ridiculous. He said, how many school children drive by F. Joe Biden signs on their way to school? And you've never said anything about that.
no,
And so that's, okay.
I have his
a good
comment
point.
here if you want. I can read it.
Sure.
It says, here in Colchester, should social services check out the situation in every home that flies an F Biden or an F liberals flag? There might be children living there being indoctrinated to hate. Here in Colchester, these flags are flying high in close proximity to elementary schools and have been for years. I'm guessing this girl got her idea for the sign from flags flown by angry MAGA extremists who have no regard for the impacts on young school children who see them every day. They have normalized public display of political vulgarity as being socially acceptable, a form of free speech. Of course, could be said the same about flyers of F Trump flags, but I haven't seen them outside of a demonstration. I often wonder if the evolution of this normalization of public display of political vulgarity would lead to F local candidate, insert local candidate's name, election season lawn signs, and year-round flags in local politics. I mean, look, it's a very valid point, and I mean, I'm not a fan of those signs. When I see somebody that's got a F Joe Biden flag, I'm like, you know, could you be any more classless? It's so distasteful. You know, there's a way to send a message, and you don't have to be vulgar all the time. You know, to be vulgar like that is just so like.
Yeah.
There's better ways to people. It just comes off as you know, and I'm no perfect individual, but it comes off as just stupid. You know, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think there are a lot better ways to say it, and it doesn't have anything to do really. Both sides are doing it, and someone has to ratchet it down. And I think that person's going to be the winner. Frankly, I think that the Democrats, if I were one of them, I'd be looking for some candidate who does not have Donald Trump living rent-free inside their head.
Yeah.
And is thinking, gee, what can I do to actually improve the lives of the average middle-class American? What could I actually do that could actually help that?
Well,
because that guy might win, or gal.
That's right. And I think the concept of, you know, Trump derangement syndrome, which we've talked about before, like Trump really does drive people almost to insanity.
Well,
like
they allow him to.
They allow him to, yeah. And I think that he becomes like this caricature that, which, by the way, whether they're right or wrong about it, lives rent free in their head.
That's so true.
It's like if you guys put up a candidate, you know who's been kind of joking about running in the Democratic Party, who I think actually would be hilarious if he did. You know who Stephen A. Smith is?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard him kind of floating it. And
ESPN sports guy.
Yeah, ESPN sports guy. No political experience. Personally, I think he would be fighting an uphill battle there. But somebody like that who has the ability to articulate, make good points, but it's not all Trump is the reason. Trump is bad. You know, I keep having these conversations with people locally about what the 26 midterms are going to look like, and it's like, all we're seeing right now from the left is Trump. It's all his fault. It's all his fault. But nothing about a lot of the actual substance.
And in Vermont, we're seeing that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about specifically. You know.
Yeah. VPIRG is running ads against Brenda Steady in Milton, our representative over there, with a picture of Brenda Steady and a picture of Donald Trump, saying, "A vote for Steady is a vote for Trump." It's like, that's just nuts. But that's the angle they're taking, I guess.
The angle is
all they have.
It is all they have, and it's all.
Well, they got to do better.
Anti-MAGA extremism.
Yeah.
You know, I do want to share this video from Planet Hank. This is the clip of
now,
him.
Who is Planet Hank?
So Planet Hank, he's a guy who's been doing real investigative reporting down in Brattleboro area.
Yeah.
He's been, you know, a lot of police reporting. He like basically will go around and like follow scanners and that kind of stuff.
Does Brattleboro have a police problem, a drug problem?
They don't necessarily have a police problem, but they have a really bad drug problem.
Terrible.
They have a really bad, you know, I think drug trafficking at this point because it's such a central hub on I-91.
That's right.
So there's a lot of stuff going through there. But so he does a lot of really great stuff. And if you go check out his channels, go check out his YouTube, his Facebook. Just look up Planet Hank. He does a Thursday night podcast, and I think he's really killing it. He's doing a nice job. But so here he is. This is at the No Kings rally in Brattleboro. This is hilarious. This had me belly laughing when I first saw it. So here you go, folks. I'll say no more.
Bro, I would be wearing that right now.
Hi, I just want to introduce everyone to one of our local celebrity counter-protesters. This is Hank. Hank!
Yeah.
Hi, Hank!
Yes!
Hey! I want to welcome you. But I also want to let everyone here know you do not need to answer him when he talks to you. You do not need to respond.
Don't answer me!
And all we do will be against us.
Boo this man!
So he is the ghost he is, and let us enjoy the amazing energy we have. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
One king!
God bless America!
One king!
Everyone bless America! This is Flag Day. This is the Army's birthday, and we all celebrate together.
Yes!
I want to give you...
That was awesome. Thank you. Oh, it's
Thank you.
Remember her?
So we've been.
Well, that almost sounded like a patriotic rally or something.
Right? It's like,
Wow.
thank you, God bless you, God
Yeah.
bless America. Whoa.
It's the Army's birthday.
You can disagree with
It's Antifa's birthday. No, it's the Army's birthday.
Yeah, right?
You can disagree with an administration and yet still support the country that it serves.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that there's some truth to that, and I think that there is definitely, I really do believe this right now within the Democratic ranks, like we were just talking about. There are huge issues, and there is definitely a re-evaluation happening. Like, do we really hate our country? Do we really hate the flag? Do we not support the military? You know, they're asking these questions because they're like, Trump is so with all that, and that seems to be popular, so maybe we should consider this. Like, I think a lot of people are upset that Trump has, quote unquote, like ruined the flag. Like, people will say that, and they're trying to take it back, you know? And it's like, maybe you should all think about why we got into this position in the first place. Yeah, we do have some comments. Before we go to comments, though, I do want to go just quickly to an ad.
Okay.
This is we're doing this. We're getting better at it. Today's episode is brought to you by Perros. Discover Perros in Waterbury, Vermont's premier firearm destination. Explore an unparalleled selection of firearms, complemented by our exclusive indoor firearms range, the one of its only kind in Vermont. Elevate your skills with their comprehensive professional training classes tailored to every level of expertise. At Perros, they're dedicated to providing exceptional service and expertise for all of your firearms needs. And with that, Guy, I am going to go to a couple comments. This is from Committeeman Josh Beckhover. Josh, good afternoon to you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope things are going well for you. He writes, the grandees have too strong of a grip for Stephen to make inroads at the moment, but the DNC is melting down financially, so who knows?
At the moment.
Yeah, well, exactly.
The same way Trump. Everyone laughed when he got in because everyone knew that George Bush's brother was going to be the next guy, Jeb Bush. Well, he went and he seized voter control. He got the backings of the voter. So whoever that person is, absolutely, it's going to be an outsider. No doubt about it. It will not be AOC or Christian Gillibrand or someone like that. It'll be...
Well, I think that they're running into the same problem that the Democrats even here in Vermont are kind of running into, where it's like, you know, AOC or one of those characters running for president would be like if, I don't know, Becca Ballant ran for governor or something. Like you need kind of like this different, you have to meet a different voting class, right?
You heard any buzz about that, by the way?
I've maybe heard some buzz about that, but at this point, it's really just rumors and jokes, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny?
If Becca Ballant ran for governor, especially, of course, if Phil Scott's running again, I'd be thinking, who do the Republicans have to put up as a really strong, credible, electable character?
Yeah. Well, let's just say I'm monitoring the situation. You know, I think that there's a lot going on within the ranks of the Democratic Party nationally. I don't think that they have the power that they did a year ago. I mean, 1 year ago today.
Yeah.
I think that they are hubristic, so they don't realize that they don't have the power like they used to, but they think they do, you know. So I don't know. I have a hard time, Guy, thinking that the Democrat Party, by the way, Democrat Party, could actually put somebody up that isn't from within their little world. I mean, you saw what they did in 2016 to Bernie Sanders and in 2020.
Yeah.
You saw what they did in 2024 to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which was probably the biggest joke I've ever seen in my life. Democracy.
Talk about an oligarchy.
Yeah, an oligarchy. Really good point. And shame on Bernie, by the way, for not pointing that out and being like, maybe the billionaires and millionaires inside of the DNC are actually oligarchs. Right. Why does he never talk about that? Why does he?
And speaking of oligarchs, in Vermont, The two big oligarchies that you and I have identified are the renewable power industry and the educational establishment. They've always gotten what they want in the past. This year, the clean heat standard came within an inch of an actual repeal, and the only question was, it's lying there like a vampire in a coffin during the day. The only question is, are you going to open it up and drive a stake through its heart, repeal it, or are you just going to let it lie there and hope that it doesn't actually come out again in some future time? Thus, the fate this year of the clean heat standard, which was everything that the renewable power industry wanted. So those oligarchs are not as strong as they used to be. And the second one, which I think can kind of lead into our discussion after we're done with our comments, is this school funding bill. You know who was fighting this? It wasn't the Republicans and the low tax people who was fighting this version of the bill on Monday. It was the blob. It was the teachers union. It was the superintendents who were saying, no, don't pass this, because they didn't like it and they didn't get what they wanted.
So
The educational blob, lost on this one.
So talk to me about that then a little bit, because I think that there's a lot of confusion amongst legislators, obviously voters. I mean, voters, a lot of them don't have a clue that this even happened, unfortunately. Right. But I think there's a lot of confusion about what was done with this new H454, the new education reform bill. And I think that is kind of the main topic for today's show. And I think there's a lot of people that are tuned in to hear us chat on that.
Sure.
And I think we should probably try to answer some of their questions. So let me just say, folks, if you're out there and you're listening to us, you have questions, we're going to do our best to explain them. We'll give you answers, because this is complex stuff. There's a lot going on here. And I think that, again, it doesn't look like there's going to be immediate property tax relief. That's from my understanding at this time.
That was never going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. That's a fact.
So the next 2 or 3 years, don't forget what the last election was about.
That's right.
Right? People got their property tax bill and they said, what the heck? I think that people that are out there, not everybody watches the Vermont Podcast. So I know, but there's a lot of people out there who have literally no idea that they're going to get another property tax bill. They think it's going to go down. I mean, I think that was the kind of the
Wasn't
motive.
that the whole point?
That's the whole point. They don't have a clue that it could go up again. So
right.
I think that and that's the thing. It could go up again in 2000.
Oh, absolutely.
25.
We'll know by December, but yeah. Before we dive into that, I want to honor the folks who have commented. Do we have some more?
Of course,
Paul?
yeah. We have, this is a comment from Planet Hank. He says, hell yeah. Angry bunch. I incited them to be patriots. It only took one Hank. It only took one Hank. I love that. You really did. You incited them to, basically parrot to the Republican Party in a certain way. Happy Army birthday!
Wow.
It's kind of a really strange thing, mirror concept, if you will. Josh Beckhover writes, Planet Hank Trusters, unite! And then VT Internet Design, he says, there goes all your distribution hope. They are paying good to promote. Hope they're paying good to promote guns. I don't know. Maybe they don't like guns. It's kind of a. Thank you for your comment. I don't know.
I do not know what that means.
Yeah. Well, Car Photography writes, I think they run Newscomb. I don't know. I don't know. I think he just.
Good luck.
Yeah, I think he just basically. I think Trump played that so well, and I think that they basically just shattered his chances of ever becoming president of the United States. People right now, people that are living, in rural America especially, but even on the outskirts, or if you're just a middle class family, right? You look at what you're seeing with the riots and stuff in California, and then just how awful the inner cities have become, truly. Yeah. That's not popular amongst most Americans. And Newscomb is defending that. He's defending it and saying that, and I don't know if you just saw this, he just lost the case with the National Guard. So he tried to sue Trump for taking over the National Guard, and he actually lost the case because the court was just like, look, man, he had to do this, basically. I mean, I didn't look too deeply into it. I don't know exactly how they ruled it, but I just thought it was funny. Of course they did. So,
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I don't think the rest of the country really wants to be like California. I think it's more a cautionary tale than anything else.
It's a bad sign for a state's government when we hear about things like, I don't know, riots in LA, and we think, well, of course, it's LA.
Right. Good
That's
point.
where they happen.
Right. So, any others?
that's all
Okay,
for
very
now,
good.
Guy. Yep.
Okay, so let's dive into property tax relief, question mark. You know, I keep saying this, but Paul, you and I were here last November. Huge red wave. And the driver of that red wave was, we've had it up to here with these constant double-digit property tax school education bills. We've had it. This has got to stop. So the legislature came back and said, well, we got it. Absolutely. The governor said that too. Here's what they've come up with after, oh boy, who knows how many man hours of sitting and listening and studies and everything. Finally, this Monday, they voted out a bill that said, right now, we have 119 school districts. Under this bill that passed out, there will be somewhere between 15 to 20. We don't know where those will be. We know they'll be between 4,000 and 8,000 students, which is an awful lot of students. And this whole thing of, in my town of Berlin, your town of Northfield, you go to the polls and you sit and you listen to the school board talk about the school budget, about whether they need a new school bus or not, and then you decide to vote for it. No, that's done. That's over with. The local control of the school budget, toast. It's gone under this. Instead, they'll be voting on, for your huge school district, voting on one budget for, it might be all of Washington and Orange County or something like that. But and as you pointed out earlier, Paul, they haven't actually done the boundaries yet. So we really don't know. That's supposed to come maybe next year.
Okay.
They could not agree on where the boundaries ought to be. So, but the hope there is bigger school districts mean economy of scale, mean savings. And they built in minimum size in classes, classroom minimum size. So no class will have less than such and such for high school, such and such for middle school, such and such for elementary school. And the hope being that increases the staff to student ratio. Whereas right now it's the lowest in the nation, hopefully by minimum sizes, that gets larger. Both of those, though, have a huge problem with small local schools. Because small local schools tend to have often smaller classes, and it's more expensive. And if you have a large school district that says, okay, we've got to keep our costs down, well, we've got that little school out in Brainerd and that school in Granville, and, well, the people in Brainerd and Granville, no one else is going to care, but boy, they're going to care because they're going to lose their local school. So think about this. Think about this. This is actually huge. In rural Vermont, we're possibly losing our schools, and at the same time, we may be losing some of our local hospitals because of the same problem is happening with healthcare. So maybe not so much completely losing those hospitals, but downscaling and everything going to consolidation, to where if you're sick, you're more and more likely going to be driving to Burlington or maybe to Berlin or maybe to Dartmouth. So what's left in Brainerd? if you have no more elementary school, and if your hospital is now an hour and a half drive away instead of 20 minutes, supposedly you want people to move to Vermont, right?
Yeah, they're going to destroy small towns.
So that is going to make small town life so much more difficult, and therefore this whole thing of we need people to move to Vermont. We don't have enough workers. Well, guess what? They're not moving to Brainerd. Now maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll move somewhere else. Maybe if the schools are better in Springfield, maybe the hospital stays there. Maybe some of the other urban areas in Vermont do get bigger and better services. Maybe those areas build up a bit. But boy, rural Vermont, as in real rural Vermont, we could be looking at just almost like a wasteland of basic services there. Tim?
My personal concern with this whole bill has been, and I haven't really seen much on this, is yes, at the moment this will be used to cut costs, this will be used to do at least that's the intent. However, if we have another supermajority that gets in charge of the state government, we have taken the power away from the individual towns to say no. It makes it a lot easier.
Why? So those
For
school
that to be
districts
turned
that got
around.
voted down last March,
Yeah.
that taxpayer revolt last March,
Yeah.
that wouldn't really
That
be
wouldn't
happening.
happen.
At least not on a local level.
Right.
That's a good point, Tim.
Well, with
You'd have-
that, I think today it might be a good opportunity to go to an ad, guys.
Sure.
Today's episode is brought to you by Proctor Gas. Are you a homeowner wishing to convert your home to propane gas so you can enjoy energy, efficiency, and off-grid living? Alternatively, you may be a contractor seeking propane tank and line installation services and related services for your clients. Either way, our propane company is here to help. They provide comprehensive services and a variety of products from leading brands in Rutland and beyond. Proctor Gas has been one of our first sponsors from the beginning. We want to always shout out Judy Taranovich and bringing us on and making her part of the show. We again, so thankful, as always. But I do have a couple comments here. If we want to, I have a couple people that had some thoughts on what Tim had to say and what you just said, Guy.
Yeah.
This is Josh Beckover. He says, my undergrad an econometric thesis studied education in Massachusetts, when we found no significant correlation whatsoever between class size and a litany of student outcomes. So, I guess that's what is the point he's trying to make? I'm sorry.
What
it's
he's
right
trying
over
to
my
say
head.
is class size doesn't really matter for outcomes. So therefore, if you can save money by having bigger classes, you're not sacrificing anything with having a large classroom.
Sure.
There's no real trade-off there. We're going to have less of an academic outcome, but we're going to save money. No, actually, you're just going to save money.
So, I mean, to be fair, I mean, if you have a class size of 50 kids, one teacher,
Right.
I could see there being problems with that.
Yeah.
Speaking from, my mother's a teacher, I would hate to see her have a classroom of 50 first graders, just as
You wouldn't have any teacher. That'd be the real problem.
That's what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
you have to think of that. I mean, there's definitely some connection there. But I get what he's trying to say, especially once you get into the high school. Middle school, pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
But once you get into high school, I could see there being larger class sizes and it being less of a problem. I mean, hey, look, some of our greatest universities, well, define greatest these days, but they teach in lecture halls of student sizes of 250, 300 people plus. So, that, University of Vermont, many of my classes were like that. So I kind of get what he's trying to say. Long term, I think the younger you are, the more. It's kind of like, the special needs kind of issue too. It's like the younger someone is, the more that they need direct attention, So I think there is something to be said about that.
Okay. So we've only touched on the school governance, the class size and the districts and all that, but that doesn't even really touch the two other really, really big things about this bill. And one of them is what to do with our independent schools. And in Vermont, that's a big deal because we have a state law, have had for over 100 years, that says if you want to send your kid, if you don't have a high school, and you can send them anywhere in the state, and including to an independent school. St. Johnsbury Academy, perfect example of that. Linden Institute, Sharon Academy, the Burr and Burton, other and long-standing independent schools that are essentially the local high schools for their area. So when this whole thing came up, the blob and the teachers' unions just grabbed on and said, okay, here's our chance. Here's our chance to get rid of the independent schools, or to at least really, really hem them in and marginalize them. And when you look at it, there's actually a very sensible reason from their point of view of why that is. Remember, they are unions. The Vermont NEA is a union. What do unions like? What are they always trying to do?
Increase their ranks,
Yes.
get more pay.
Both of those
Yeah.
things. They're trying to get more pay and they're trying to recruit. They're trying to increase their ranks. So they look at these independent schools and say, you know, they're threats because those people aren't union members. They make a ton less more money and their outcomes are really pretty darn good. So who's the enemy here? I mean, not the enemy, but the adversary,
yeah.
the opposition,
Yeah.
you might say, are these successful, thriving independent schools. So they tried their very best to sort of ease them out the door. And that's the money reason. The secondary reason is ideology. Especially in the last 5 or 10 years, our schools have really bought into the whole DEI, whole woke, so much sort of social programming in our schools. And the independent schools, because they're independent, are able to say, we'll take your money, we'll educate your kids, but frankly, don't get too much into our curriculum and our programming. You know, we know we have to deliver certain deliverables, but don't tell us how to do this. So the ideology pushers are sort of frustrated because they can't control all of that. So another reason why they really don't want the independent schools to get a leg up. One senator in particular from Chittenden County, Senator Gulick, said, look, one of the reasons I am voting no on this bill is because this opens the door to independent schools, religious schools, every kind of, oh my gosh.
Not religious schools,
Yeah.
guy.
Well, there's actually a list of these are the schools that qualify and these are the schools that don't. And I can tell you the schools that don't qualify under the new, rather strict independent school guidelines are, I don't think any of the religious schools do, including like, Rice High School,
Sure.
which is a really, very high quality school. But nope, sorry, they don't. Even though there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision involving Vermont cases that said, actually, yes, if you're in a tuition town, you can send them to a religious school. So, I mean, there's the Supreme Court precedent right there, and they're just sort of saying, la, 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 it didn't actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well-
there's the independent school thing that they basically sort of split the baby on that.
Well, I will say I do want to go back to the whole DEI woke kind of
Yeah.
thing going on in the schools. It's like, if they don't have the grips of that kind of, again, not just that climate change, certain
that.
versions of history, what's omitted, what is shared, what's not
Right.
shared. Which holidays do we celebrate? Which holidays do we not celebrate?
Right.
Why do we change the name of holidays? Again, kind of the re-education and reprogramming of our youth. And if you can get them when they're young, then they'll think like that for the rest of their lives. And I think that's honestly one of our biggest problems. And again, that's also how they continue to increase their ranks. If you're being taught by a bunch of union members, and I'm not picking on union members, hear me out very clear, but if you're being taught by a bunch of union members, a bunch of public educators who want the system to increase in its size, they're going to have a certain bias. I can remember being in school and like there were certain teachers that definitely had views that I definitely would disagree with today. But at the time, I just kind of bought into it because, like I didn't.
Right.
I will say, let me be very clear. I had some really great teachers that allowed me to ask questions and think for myself. And I won't name any names, but I'm very thankful for some of the teachers that I had. But still, point is, I'm not in school anymore or for the last 10 years. And from what I'm hearing and from what I'm seeing, they're just trying to educate and program their next generation of foot soldiers for whatever you want to call it, the Democratic Party, the NEA, the blob, however you want to call it.
Right.
So
The brave new world.
it is quite strange, yes.
And that is why the blob is worried. Because people are choosing these independent schools, specifically choosing them, and in the case of private schools, specifically paying for results. They are not paying for political education for their kids. They want them to learn the things that learn the things you're supposed to be learning in school to survive.
Right.
Not how do you make somebody happy even though you can't pay your rent.
Right. Right.
Great. So you're politically correct and you're living in a ditch.
Right.
Parents don't want that for their children. Even if they disagree with the school's ideology, they're more concerned about the actual results.
Yeah. Every parent wants their kids to be able to take care of themselves and to make enough money to buy their own homes, and so they don't have to live in the basement, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Sure.
I can relate to that. So the final thing after school governance, class sizes, independent schools is the money. How much money is this thing going to raise, and what's this going to mean for our taxes? Which really kind of full circle, this is what this was all about to begin with. Well, what I can do is tell you what it looks like. What I can't do is tell you whether or not it will save you in taxes in the long run. All right? So they've decided that there will be $15,000 paid out per student, sort of statewide. There's a little bit of weighting in that, but basically every kid in public schools, the district gets $15K for them. The school districts that they want can vote for some more, can increase that 10% or so. But basically, you get this $15K. And this was something that sold, like, for example, Senator Terry Williams, who's a Republican from Rutland County, said, I'm voting for this. And I asked him why. And he said, well, because this foundation, they call it foundation formula, $15K a year, will stabilize our taxes. This will make it so that we're not going to be looking at these escalating increases if it's done right, he said. And all the numbers he's seen from Rutland, from his district, says it looks pretty good for Rutland. So he's for it. And they have to do something, and this is the best shot that they have at it. Now, it does say 15,000, but it also, in the law, says 15,000 with inflation. So in other words, if the cost of living goes up, if maybe the cost of health care goes up.
Which it is going to.
Yes, the cost maybe of, replacing new schools or something.
Sure.
Is going to go up. Are we going to be in this same sort of vicious cycle? And I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that question. And what I do know is that 15K, that was the high number. The House wanted 15K. The Senate version of the bill was down to 13K. The governor wanted 12,000. And the number that finally came out of the bill, the House got what they wanted. They got the high end on per student spending. So you got to wonder if when this supposedly kicks in about 3 years, and as you and I were saying earlier before, Paul, between now and then,
A lot could change.
none of this has anything to do with that. Now you might figure, well, that they're going to be applying some of the lessons that they've learned through doing this bill in school funding for the next 2 or 3 years. And that may be. Maybe they'll be moving in that direction and cost savings will happen. That could be. But I don't think anyone really knows. And frankly, the state of Vermont doesn't have a great track record of passing huge landmark school savings education and then having it work. It tends to not work very well. So the hope
history
here
is
is
not good, just to be clear. The
history
track
is
record.
not great. So it's really hard to say. Maybe it'll all fly really well.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'm going to go to today's final ad. Today's episode is brought to you by Randmar Corporation. Randmar Corporation has been serving central Vermont and surrounding areas with excavation, construction, and real estate services since 1979. They're a local, family-owned company committed to the values of Vermont. Contact Randmar Corporation today for all of your contracting and real estate needs. And how you can do that, you got to look them up. Look up randmarcorp.com, rand-mar.com, and you'll be able to find their contact information there. If you have a project you're working on, you have a development maybe you're seeking to go after, reach out to these guys, and they should be able to help you out. Guy, just quickly, I have a quote I was just thinking about that I want to read from Napoleon Hill, who is he's kind of an author from the early 30s, 20s. He's written a handful of books. One of them, Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
That's probably his most well-known
yes.
one. He's a self-help author. A lot of and he
Tony
talks
Robbins of his era.
Exactly. He talks a lot about the education system, and he's always been very critical, if you read a lot of his work, of the education system. And this is just now that we're talking about the finances of it, he says, greatest public school system in the world. We have invested fabulous sums for fine buildings. We have provided convenient transportation for children living in the rural districts so they may attend the best schools. But there is one astounding weakness to this marvelous system. It is free. One of the strange things about human beings is that they only value that which has a price. And I just think, missed our conversation here today, talking about per student, how much they're going to spend, and it is supposedly free, right? But somebody's paying for it.
I'll say.
And I don't think Vermonters necessarily feel like the 20% tax increase, whether you own a big home or you own a little place. I don't think you necessarily feel good about paying that if you know that essentially your dollars are kind of being wasted,
Yeah.
So
I'll say. Our taxes. Cullen and I just went, you got to be kidding, when we saw our bill. But I think we're about winding down. Any last comments there, Paul?
I have one from Andrew Worcester or Worcester.
Probably Worcester.
Okay.
I don't know.
He says, "I'm not holding my breath."
Yeah.
That's probably just a response to the episode's title.
I think you're probably right.
And I think a lot of us are not necessarily holding our breaths either. We'll see what happens, and look, the political implication of a property tax increase would not be a good thing for everybody involved. But I think that Republicans, in terms of the meat of the issue going into 2026, they have. I think they have the high ground, but we'll see what happens. A lot could change in between now and then.
Right. Very true. So happy Clarinth, everyone. And hope you can come out, some of you, to the Right to Life luncheon tomorrow, 11:30. There's cake, and you bring your own picnic lunch, I think is the idea. And hopefully the weather will be good. I hear it's going to be beautiful. And tune in on WDEV, 9 a.m., 9 to 11. Paul and I will be talking about the state of Vermont media with Rob Roper on his public affairs show. Till then, everyone have a beautiful, hopefully rain-free, relaxing weekend. And hey, everyone, another week in the can.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in, folks.